My name is German Rose, and it's my privilege to serve you as the Acting Vice Provost for the Office of International Programs, and to welcome you to the 5th Annual Global Case Competition Revealing. This is where you'll find out what you'll be working on for the next several weeks and preparing for the competition. This is a unique event at WSU in that it calls together virtually the entire university. And I'm going to read to you just a few statistics about who you are as a group. This is a fantastic event that unites us. We have undergraduate students and graduate students. There are 120 students participating in the first round of the Global Case Competition this year. 85 undergraduates and 35 graduate students. We have a graduate student, at least one on every one of the teams. We have representatives from all of the campuses of WSU: Spokane, Tri-Cities, Vancouver, and of course Pullman. And by the way, the global campus this year has contributed 24 participants in the program. And all of these numbers are records, by the way. We're setting new records every year with this fantastic event. We have international students participating, as is only appropriate for a global case competition. We have 25 international students, and every team will have at least one international student on it. So you're to be congratulated for taking on something that is unique, something that you probably haven't had an opportunity to do before in your time here at WSU, or probably at other schools if you're a graduate student and you came here from somewhere else. So thank you very much for your participation, and congratulations, because this is a fantastic event. And we're going to find out in just a few minutes what your challenge is. So having said that, I'd like to turn this over to Dr. Christine Oakley, who's going to set up the rest of the revealing.
Hi. I'm the person who has emailed all of you and asked you to, and let you know that you're going to be participating in this year's global case. So welcome. And as German said, this is a record year for the global case. It began in 2011, and progressively throughout the 4 years, this is the 5th year, it has increased. And we had to cap it at 120 students because our judges can't read any more than 20 solutions for you. I want to know, German read the statistics, so how many of you, so that you can raise your hand, how many of you are team captains? And for which team, so that everybody knows who to gravitate to when they want to talk to their team captain? 16. 15. 7. 10. 2. 6. 9. 20. Yay. So if you're on one of those teams, find your captain. And how many of you are student participants? Not everybody here is a student participant. Raise your hands. All right, thank you. This is a class. And how many of you are faculty advisors? For which teams?
8.
8.
15. 14.
So some, and 13. Would you like a seat? Okay. And some of your faculty advisors are on other campuses, and so we have representation of faculty and students on all campuses. How many of you are judges? We have 1 of 7 judges here, and our judges represent WSU people who work in plastic and waste management. We have folks from industry, we have community-based folks, and we have people who are experts on Brazil. So kind of cuts across all the expertise that is needed for you to evaluate your cases. today, Dr. Carl England is going to provide you with a little bit of background on the case. He is a research professor with WSU's Composite Material and Engineering Center. Do you all know where that is? No, it's not here directly on the Pullman campus. It's over on Terraview at the Research Park. So I'm going to I know you're all here to hear Carl and not me, so I'm going to let Carl tell you a little bit about global plastic waste.
Okay, so like Christina said there, I'm Carl England. I work out at the Composite Lab, and I'll show you a little bit more about that. We're over by Schweitzer, over there. We're still part of campus. We're just kind of off campus a little bit there. And I'm going to talk to you about something near and dear to my heart. If I can open it. Oh, okay, I can see it there. There you go. All right, you guys can see that all right? Recycling plastics. God, where do I even begin? Something I'd love to work with, something that's passionate to it's a great thing that I'm working here at WSU is because I can take some of the passions that I have and actually do research on it. And so it's a really fortunate thing that I have here at WSU. So let's talk about the big question is why do we throw things away? And I don't ever buy plastic bottles, but I figured since I was talking about recycling plastics, I needed a prop in my hand, so I bought one here. So why do we throw stuff away? So normally it's the end of life. It's broken. It needs to be tossed. We don't, it's served its purpose. I'm done with that bottle. Doesn't do anything more for me, so I throw it away. It doesn't have any value. If something has value, you're not going to throw it away, are you? If you can get money for that, you're not going to throw it away. What else are you going to do with it? Is it just going to sit in your house and clutter up? No, it's a convenience. Our garbage system and our disposal system is just a convenience. You can throw trash away anywhere. I mean, some places you got to pay to go to the restroom, but you can throw trash into almost anything. So it's very, very convenient. And our society and our lifestyle has been steamrolled into this materialism, buying stuff, selling stuff, and buying more stuff philosophy. And I'm not here to preach about commercialism or materialism or anything like that, but we do have this lifestyle that we're all used to. And then the plastics industry really started to accelerate this disposable society that we just we make something, a plastic bottle, a milk jug, you name it, we throw it away. And that's what happens to it. So what we'd really like to be able to do is actually start recycling these materials. And there's recycling going on, and there's a lot of efforts that are going towards this. But there's something we got to really kind of take a look at, and that's our terminology. So if I take this plastic bottle and I go throw it in the blue bins or whatever bins that say plastic bottle recycling, this is PET, have I recycled at that point in time? No. I have diverted. I took a very big step into this turning into something else, but I've really only diverted that thing. And I put it into something that somebody else can take and then turn it into something else. And that's what recycling is adapt to a new use. So if I take this plastic bottle, I put it in the bin, somebody picks it up from the bin, they grind it up, they do whatever they want to, and it makes a fleece out of it. I've recycled. There's a different variety of recycling terminologies you kind of need to get yourself familiar with. Reuse. If I take that same plastic bottle and I pour water in it, it's served its purpose again, hasn't it? And so I've reused that. Same thing with like our cups and plates at home. We don't throw our plates away every time. We reuse them. So plastic and a variety of materials can be reused. Downcycling is another term for some aspects of recycling where this, if I recycle it, turns into a lower value product. So if this is glass, and I take glass, and the glass recycling around here goes into a grinder sometimes, and it's used for road packing or for low value fill in ditches and that kind of stuff. So that's kind of a down cycle. Or if you take this plastic bottle and you grind it up and use it for incineration or for energy, that's kind of a downcycling aspect of it. Upcycling is if I take that same example and turn it into a jacket or a cell phone or computer part or something like that. And then there's refurbish. And we've been doing refurbishing for a long time. You take a motor, you refurbish the motor. You take a computer, you refurbish it. These are all different ways of recycling. We can recycle them into art, which I think is pretty cool. Lots of different structures you can do, you can make. You can do it into an art with some sense of functionality to it, where you got little planters going there. I thought this one was really quite interesting, is the roof system is made up of a bunch of smashed bottles. I like to do this at my house. I like to just find old recycled stuff or old stuff that's in a Wazenkerry. Ever been to Wazenkerry over in Moscow? It's a little demo site over there, and they got just tons of really cool stuff. You pick through that and make whatever you want to. What's one of the problems with this? Does it consume a lot? If you make an art out of it, kind of thing like that, you might use 200 bottles. You're not consuming a lot. I mean, WSU's campus could supply the artwork probably for most of the nation. So what we really want to kind of start going is turning this stuff into something functional. So this is, Ford's actually doing this with carpet. So the carpet, the tough, this is probably PET, but a lot of carpets are nylon, which is a really expensive polymer. They're taking that nylon, harvesting it off, and then injection molding it into a car part. So that's very functional. We sell a lot of car parts. We can do a lot of things with that. One of the things that I do quite a bit of work on is composite decking. You've seen the Trex decking, those kind of things. That was started about 20, 25 years ago, and the main onset of that was using plastic film, recycled plastic film. They consume a lot of plastics, a lot of recycled plastics in that. So we're doing pretty good, but we still got a long ways to go. As I mentioned, the 60s is basically when plastics were really starting to come online. Started the revolution of polymer industry. And as you can see, it has climbed to almost 32 million tons per year, and this is just in the US alone. And you can see where our recovery, it's a bit dismal. Down here about 3 to 4 tons per year, or million tons per year. You can see up here in this graph, if you can see it, these two are actually some of the high points of plastic recycling. That's your milk jugs, and that's your PET bottles. And so we're starting to get about 30% recovery on there, but that still means 70% of it is just going out, going into landfills right now. So some of the really big hurdles you guys are going to start to find when you start working on this case is of course, when you're doing anything manufacturing, making a new product or anything, it comes down to economics. The costs have got to be there for it. Your business costs, business-related costs, the cost of virgin plastics. So plastics, as you know, come from, anybody? Oil and natural gas. That's where you usually get synthetic plastics from. So making sure that you don't get too high above that, and normally recycled plastic costs are actually quite a bit lower than virgin costs right now. The secondary manufacturing, when you process it into something else, some of the issues that you might have with that. Logistics, just the shipping of like styrofoam, peanuts. It's just a bunch of air that you're shipping a lot of times. Same thing with bottles and plastics. Other plastics is just shipping that lightweight material all around, separating it. Getting the PET from the nylon, from the polypropylene, from the polyethylenes, all these different polymer types that get mixed together is a big issue. Cleaning, as you can imagine, there's a lot of stuff that needs to be cleaned before you can do anything with it. And then also the carbon balance. Did I just put more energy into recycling this thing and cleaning it and separating it and transporting it to something that I could have very easily used just the oil to do all that to make a plastic as it is again? I don't like to look at it that way. I like to look at it as we're actually removing it from the landfills also. But all these things are very, very daunting. But it also makes it fun. Because if it was really easy, everybody would be doing it and we wouldn't be here discussing it. And so that's what makes it fun. That's what makes a good research project. Because if we don't do anything, this is what things look like. I don't know if you guys have seen the Synthetic Sea. Captain Morgan Kid you not, Captain Morgan did a talk over at UI a couple years ago on the synthetic sea, and there's all our seas have, they're like, he explained it kind of like a toilet bowl that never flushes, the way the currents run, and they just collect all these plastic islands throughout the oceans, and they can be pretty bad. A lot of them are really fine, and they get into the fish gills and all that kind of stuff, and so it's just a bad thing. One of the, I'm not here to say anything bad about plastics, because I work with plastic. I think they're very good materials, but they all have a place, and we have to respect them, and we have to take care of them. The one thing about plastics that's really bad is they persist. They stay out there. They found helmets from World War II in the ocean still floating around. The really good thing about plastics is they persist and they last because they're good for outdoor exposure, outdoor environments. That's why decking lumber is made out of these things. So what is WSU doing to help right now? So as Christine mentioned, I work out at the Composite Materials and Engineering Center, where we do a lot of processing of composites. So like this table is particle board probably underneath. We do a lot of work on particle board and laminates and oriented strand board, plywood, those kind of things. We also do a lot of work, as I mentioned, with wood plastic composites or composite decking. But one of the things that I've been really getting into lately is dealing with recycled streams. And one of them, I'm actually going to be running this tomorrow, is I work with a material recycling facility in Tacoma, Washington, that sends me this fiber. They kind of shear off the fibers off the carpet there. I turn it into pellets, and then I make a little post for them. And so those are things that we do. We're looking at carbon fiber composites and recycling those. We look at a whole host of wood waste streams and recycling those, and a whole host of other types of plastic, ski boots, plastic waste streams off of paper mills. So there's a lot of things that we do out there. Another thing that's come on here just in the last year is the Center for Bioplastics and Biocomposites, which is led up by both Iowa State University and WSU. And Dr. Kessler here in the Mechanical Engineering Department is leading up our side. And it's a National Science Foundation Industry University Cooperative Research Center that looks at biocomposites and biopolymers. And like I said, synthetic polymers come from oil and natural gas. Well, it's also feasible and very, very feasible to make plastics from bio-based materials, renewable materials. So you can take corn, turn it into ethanol, turn it into ethylene, and turn it into polyethylene. And a variety of other types of plastics that you can make. Polylactic acid, the same kind of process. So this is a center that looks into these types of materials and making these, and the hurdles and the potential that these things invoke. And one of the big things they have is that they're biodegradable. So you can take a PLA bottle or a variety of these other bottles and put it in the landfill, and it will, or put it in the compost, and it will actually break down. But they can also make these things be durable, just like regular synthetic polymers. So there's a lot of advantages, a lot of cool things going on in that area. So, whenever you sit in these kind of talks, you go, wow, that's really cool. What the heck can I do? What can I do? And you guys are doing a really cool thing in this global case competition. I didn't know about it because I am all the way over on the other side of campus, so I don't get out much. And when I heard about that, I said, this is great, And so you guys are doing a really good thing. You're getting involved. You're problem solving. That's a great thing to do. Do it at home. Do it in your local community. Do it at your workplace. Getting people to recycle. Just doing it by example is a huge thing. Consume less and recycle more. I know everybody hates that, but when you get right down to it, that's the crux of a lot of problem. There's no reason to buy a bottle of water when there's a water fountain right next to you. I mean, that's my mind. Nalgene water bottles, you can bring them along, fill them up, you're good to go. Reusable coffee cups, plastic bags, or reusable bags, all those kind of things. Use your wallet to vote. That's one of the best things. You guys don't have a lot of disposable income now, but you have enough. And your demographic is what everybody's going after. And if you look at package A and package B, or good A compared to good B, and A's got a whole bunch of packaging all around and it's excessive, and package B is just really thinly done and it looks nice and it's made out of recycled materials, you buy that if that's really something that you feel for. And so using your wallet is one of the best ways to vote in this country. And so by doing that, you can start to evoke change, because when businesses see that people are buying it because it's recycled or because it's easier to recycle, they'll start making things that way. And that's just the way it works. And so just be conscious of your consumption. So some of the keys to having a successful recycling is, like I said, keeping the costs down. You can't be too much higher than virgin polymer costs. It's not going to happen. Minimize your carbon economic footprint. So try to minimize how much energy is going into a system, or how much oil you have to use, how much transportation you have to use. Looking at the market, what will customers buy that's recycled? A lot of people don't want to fly in a plane that's recycled materials, you know, a little edgy on that. Or, you know, it's little kind of things you got to watch out for. Which markets are the best? Where's the low-hanging fruit, that easy access materials that you can go in and replace with recycled materials? And then the performance. You just can't compromise on performance. You can sell the story that it's recycled for so long, but it's got to perform just as good as the other products in that market. And then the mindset, changing the mindset of people to know, you know, traditionally recycled materials are always kind of looked at as inferior products. Changing that mindset and making products that are not inferior and they're the same or even better is really a big, big concern. And then telling the story. Like I said, the story is good that you're recycling. That's a really great way to kind of sell your idea, is that it's recycled material, or it's easy to recycle. You design this material to break down easily so it can be recycled. That's a great story. It's not going to be your business plan, but it's definitely part of that business. You shouldn't shy away from that, but don't rely on that as your main driver. Now, the keys to this in developing countries, or other countries besides it, I was just down in Louisiana last week, and that's like a different country compared to the Northwest as far as recycling. I mean, nobody recycles down there, and it's just non-existent. I was on the LSU campus, and they had some around the LSU campus, but once you got outside the campus, nothing. It was really kind of a little unsettling. That's the way it is. So when you get out into Brazil or wherever you may go, capital and operating costs are going to be probably different. We are very, very fortunate in this area to have very low electricity rates. You go into some third world countries or developing countries, the electricity rates are out astronomical. But then again, their labor costs may be cheaper. Cost of living is a little bit cheaper, which is unfortunate, but yet you supplying them a job is also a good thing. Understand your local market. If the U.S. market is selling deck boards and everybody's buying them, that's probably not what's going to happen in a developing country or another country that doesn't have houses as much, or they don't have as much space. So really understand what people want, how you can sell that product, the product line, and where you're selling it to. And then understand the culture and people. And that's a really big thing when it comes to recycling. And you know, it's an act of passion a lot of times, because people are passionate about it. So you try to figure out what makes people tick in that culture, in that region. And what makes people tick around here probably doesn't work everywhere else. Like if you were in a seaside or a fishing community, and you sold them the story that, you know, if you got rid of all the plastic that's in the ocean, it would encourage or enhance the fish populations because fish wouldn't be dying from plastics going into them. You know, that might be something that you can grab a hold of and you can say, this is why we should recycle. And then always try to work within their system. As soon as you start taking, so if you were to build a recycling facility around here, you would be taking away money going to the dump, right? Because the dump gets paid when you drop trash off there. So you got to make sure that if you do any type of recycling program, you don't pinch off somebody and get somebody pretty pissed off at you. So always understand the system, how they're getting rid of this plastic at this time, and if it's wrong, then you change it and do whatever you can. So I think that's my time. Is that good enough? You guys got any questions, or is this a? Yes.
What's the life cycle of the bioplastics? What is the shelf life of the bioplastic product?
Well, you know, so if you make something out of starch, so like some people were making starch forks and for picnics and that kind of stuff, cutlery. You put that into the ground, it'll probably degrade in like a couple days. or it'll start breaking down in a couple of days. If you make something out of polylactic acid, which is a little bit more developed polymer structure, it probably takes about 6 to 8 months to kind of get that thing. So it really depends upon the type. Biopolymers is a really big class of polymers. So, and then some of them, like I said, don't actually degrade.
Okay.
Well, they degrade over 10,000 years or something.
Exposed will take longer.
What's that?
If it's like exposed, will take longer. Just like if it's exposed in the environment.
Yeah, so more like most of these things, most of the biopolymers, to get them to degrade are going to need some moisture and not frozen temperatures. They're going to need to be able to break it down, the bacteria and the organisms that break those things down, and the water get in there to kind of break it down. So, yeah. Yeah.
What did you mean by recovered plastic film? What is that?
Recovered plastic film. Oh, so that's another term. I didn't really get into recovered. And that's kind of like the step between diversion and recycling. Somebody's recovered it, and they said, so they actually had what they call material recycling facilities that will actually bring in the material. They're kind of the middleman in the recycling. So they recover it, and they have it, and then they sell it on the market kind of thing. So that's a recovered plastic stream. So, yep. Any more questions?
Now's your chance because after this it's just
Yes.
Do bioplastics help the soil at all, or do they kind of degrade?
So if it's a true bioplastic, it should break down into its base constituents. And so I am not a soil nutritionist at all, but I would imagine it probably wouldn't do any damage to it. I don't know if it would promote it or make it worse, but I kind of doubt it'd do a lot of damage to it. So. Do you have a way to get on anybody online, or do they have any way of getting?
No, they are.
They're just stuck out there? Okay. Oh, they're videotaping. Great. Yeah.
So how does the manufacture of bioplastics, in terms of, I guess how different is the manufacturing from using raw petroleum? Or are you still using the same mechanical processes and the same solvents, et cetera, or?
That's a really big question. And so there are some aspects of it that are very similar to traditional synthetic plastics. And then usually where you're different is on the front end, so if you're going to make something out of corn, you gotta break that corn down, get the sugars out, ferment the sugars into ethanol, and then the ethanol turns into yeah, exactly, yeah. And there are some subtle differences, but the general rule of thumb is you can do that. So, yeah. Good. Well, good luck to you guys. Oh, sorry.
So, if I remember correctly, plastic is a little bit stronger in tension rather than compression, but if you use like a wood plastic composite, does it make it better for tension situations if you're using it for construction?
So plastics are very good in tensile strength. They're kind of low in tensile stiffness, and so the wood in there actually stiffens it up and makes it a little bit more rigid, I guess, if you want to put it that way. So. Yes?
So is it 70% of the plastic produced in the U.S. that goes in landfills, or?
No, it's bigger. So when I showed you that graph before and it had those two items that were 30% recovered, that was only itemized out. The overall recovery is, what was it, like 3 out of 32 million. So 10%, something like that. Yeah. It used to be like, 5-10 years ago, it was like maybe 2%. I mean, it was non-existent. So we have come a little bit away. I'm trying to put a positive spin on this. It's difficult. Metals are a beautiful material to recycle. I mean, Nucor Steel over in Seattle and a couple others, they just take all your metal and turn it into rebar because the energy density is there. You put 95% of the energy is already consumed even when you bring it back as a recycled product. So you only have to add 5% more energy to get that into the same steel product. So it's a real easy thing to do. Plastics, they're low density, they're dirty, they're difficult to deal with. But then again, that's what makes it fun, exciting. Yeah.
What's the biggest bottleneck in the whole process as far as like cost and production wise? Is it most expensive, like breaking you get all these plastics coming in from all different sources? Is it more expensive to break it all down or to actually refine it into new materials or whatever you're trying to do?
You know, that's a good question, because I don't know if there's a clear answer to that, but I'll give you what I think the big answer is once you get it into that, we were talking about that recovery facility. Once you get it there, it's pretty good at that point in time, because it's in the system. People are looking to buy it. It's the logistics is really. It's how do I get, so if I throw this thing into the bin and everybody else throws theirs into the bin every day and we bring it out to the recycling facility, what do we do with it then? Who takes it? China has been taking it for the most part. We don't have an infrastructure really set up to do much with our plastics. It's getting better, and they are doing a lot with especially bottles and milk jugs and those kind of things, and that's why you see those values high. But it's really along the logistics. How do you get this material into the hands of somebody that can use it? And especially when it's spread out all over the whole country. Because we don't have a lot of plastics manufacturers here in the Northwest. A lot of them are back in Detroit, Cleveland area where the auto manufacturers are. And that's where a lot of the plastics is. So getting our material back over to there for their consumption, that's a big issue. And so having the logistics of getting that thing back into another bottle, back into a fleece jacket, back into carpet, whatever, that step, getting it to those guys that produce it, I think that's probably your biggest hurdle right now in the States. So. Yeah.
Outside of the process of plastics breaking down naturally, are there any chemicals that you use to speed up that process under controlled conditions?
Chloroform works pretty well to break down polyethylenes. There are some strong solvents that break down plastics, but they're pretty strong and pretty nasty. The chemical route to breaking these things down is good like they do it for nylons. They'll take nylon carpet and they'll break it down into caprolactone, into a monomer form, and then build it back up again, kind of thing. They can do that in a controlled environment, and it works relatively well, but it's pretty pricey and somewhat cost prohibitive. But yeah, you can break them down chemically, but the good thing about plastics is they resist. You can store a lot of things in plastics, and they don't break it down really quick. So like sulfuric acid, you can put in plastics for a while and it doesn't do much to it. So it's resilient. It sticks around. That's its attribute and its weakness all at once. So yes?
Should we focus on what to do with the plastic or push it away from using the plastic?
Don't answer.
So that, I don't know if I can answer that. That's a really good question. That is a question for everybody to look at. Do you go away from it, or do you figure out the best way to handle it? That's a really good question. And I think that should be part of your
Part of your task.
part of your task. Yes, yes.
All right.
All righty. Thanks a lot, guys. Good luck.
I think you were a real good lead-in for your next task. Those of you who, all of you have a tag on you that you've identified your team, so you may want to take the rest of the time to find members of your team. If you haven't met with them already, brainstorm some ideas or just say hi. One of the things that you're going to be judged on is how well your solutions reflect the interdisciplinarity of your teams. So if your team is made up of an English major, an anthropology major, a crop science major, an engineer, and a political science major. Oh, let's change that to criminal justice. Then your solution, then it's important for you to understand how every one of those team members can contribute to that solution. Because as Carl said, it's not just the technology, it's not just the science, it's cultural, it's economic, it's political, and all of those things are important in such a, not just a scientific problem, but a social problem and an economic problem. So all of those things, everyone on your team has something to contribute. So you can get to know one another, what's your major, and all of those types of things, just so that you can develop solutions that do reflect all of the knowledge and everything everyone on your team has to contribute. And has value and adds to your team's solution. Do you have any questions for me regarding the case, regarding the rules, regarding any of that? Yeah. Yes?
Okay, I have like 3 questions.
Okay.
How are we funded? Or are we not? Sorry, I know it's not based on...
When you say we, who's included in that we? You're not getting paid to do this. Okay. Just want to make that clear.
That we are giving the solution through, right? Because I saw the global case, it says that your role is to be a part of a non-governmental organization. So
Yeah.
is this like a theoretical solution and there's no, like, this is how much money it would take to do this? Like, you know, that's what I'm...
It's a real good question. Is that all 3 of them all at once?
Oh, no,
Okay.
Second question is...
Oh, wait a minute. Let me answer the first one first. So it's up to you to make that determination. You're a consultant to an NGO who has a relationship or a partnership with the UN. And so find out all of that. We haven't identified what that NGO is. You can do that, or you can make that up. You can fill in those blanks relative to what you're talking about. And the other piece is, if you want to be funded by someone, then figure that out. Okay. So you are a fictional entity, but one of the keys to the solution is it needs to be realistic. Yeah, and if it's out there somewhere and it costs, you know, $50 billion to implement this in Manaus, Brazil, then it probably isn't realistic or implementable within a 5-year period.
Okay.
Is that, okay, question 2.
So question number 2, is our program just affecting that part of Brazil, or is it for the entire?
We have, just so that you have something manageable to deal with, you know, Brazil is a very large country. So focus on the location of the case, which is unique. So focus on the location of the case, understand what it's all about, what other competing social problems there may exist, all of those types of things.
Okay.
Yep.
Last question.
Yes?
Can you take an idea that already exists in the world, right? Like so some stuff that he was mentioning, like how they already have like, certain types of like usage for plastic, and use that and put that into your organization, like if that's allowed? Because like technically it's not our idea, right? Because it already exists. Like if they're doing it in some other country, then we implement it.
Yeah, you can do that. For example, I'll give you an example of last year's case. Last year's case was arsenic poisoning in Bangladesh. And so what the winning team did is they did research on all kinds of water filtration systems. And they identified one that was piloted up in Bellingham, Washington, and looked at all the data about that, understood what the arsenic problem was in Bangladesh, and said, maybe this particular type of water filtration might work. And we can provide a case. We can support that, why we think it's worth. It might be economical, it's easy, you don't need people to manage it, et cetera, et cetera. So they use some cultural variables, they use some science. Does that answer your question? Sure. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. So do your research and no, you don't have to. If you want to invent something that you think is really workable, that would be wonderful. But you can patent it and do all those things and talk to Carl about how to do that. The last thing I want to share with you is From this point on, you have your team to work with. You also have a faculty advisor. That faculty advisor's job is to help you facilitate conversations among you, so to build your organization. He or she can also assist you in the identification of resources. It's not their job to, what solution would you like to come up with? You're an expert in this area. So utilize them as advisors, and they can assist you in that process. Other questions? Yes?
I know one of the rules is that, like, after today, we're kind of on our own. We're allowed to ask questions to...
You can't call Carl up and say, hey, Carl, what do you think of this idea? Right.
But are we allowed to say, for example, contact maybe pre-existing infrastructures in-house to make sure that we're not coming up with an idea that's already been implemented or something like that?
I've been asked that question a lot, and I would say if it's a part of your research, if there's somebody on your team that knows somebody who works with Carl and who does this stuff, I would say that's off limits. The job and your task is to creatively come up with the best solution that your team can come up with. So work within the resources of that creative team. And you can do the, research that you need to do, utilize the library, utilize online resources, but really work within your team members and not go to outside experts who are going to give you all the creative ideas that you probably already have and can generate among yourselves. Does that help answer, Sebastian? Okay. Yes, Katie.
What if we have an idea that we have come up with and we want to find out if it's if part of it even doable? Will we talk to an expert and say, hey, is this piece even?
Nope. It's your job to support that idea. You came up with idea because there is evidence out there that this idea may work. And it's your job to support that the best way you can, the best way you can, and say, we think that this is going to work because, and your because is evidence-based in whatever you can come up with. The next date that you need to be very cognizant of is March 9th at noon. Not 5 o'clock, not midnight, but noon. Your two-page solutions are submittable then, and you can always submit them before if you want to do that. But that is the last. Come 12:01, we're not going to take any. So get them in. Yes. Yeah, you can email them in, and there will be a way to submit them using the registration procedure that you did, and we will let you know that. We'll give you the URL for that. Yep.
What's the process after the submission?
Good question. The process after the submission is we turn all of your solutions into PDFs, and then we send those to the judges. And the judges have until March 30th. To evaluate them. Sometime during that time, between the 9th and the 30th, the judges get together and compare ratings. So they will rate you they use a general rubric, they will rate all of those, and they will say, this is, we think this is team number 1. We select the top 5 teams to compete. So that's how the process works. The judges get together, they compare notes, they compare ratings, and then they select collectively the top 5 teams. Did that help? And then we notify you. We will notify you on or before March 30th, and then you have from March 30th to April 10th to turn those good solutions into a 10-slide PowerPoint or a Prezi or whatever mechanism you like to use to present that publicly. That is Friday of Mom's Weekend, so you can all bring your moms. Alexis.
What's the format of the paper? You just want it to be like that?
It is whatever you think the judges can read easily. So I haven't given you a format except that it's 2 pages, not counting a cover page and not counting references. So you guys figure it out that if you want to have the judges have easy access to what you have to say, whatever format that works for you. Yep.
If we come up with a technical solution requires explanation, can we include diagrams in addition to 2 pages? Or
They have to be in the 2 pages. In reasonably sized font. Please. Any other questions? Well, thank you. Thank you all for coming. I will send Carl's PowerPoint out to your team captains who will share that with you, and so that you at least have some basic information that he shared. Get some refreshments, whatever left, and then find your team members and introduce yourselves. Thank you.